Alright, hello and welcome to this tutorial on remote programming using the Atom Editor. My name is Matt Cervantes. I am a lecturer at California State University, Chico. And so I wanted to make this video to help several of the computer science students that come to Chico State with a Windows-based computer and who have never had any experience using Unix or Unix-based system, which is the primary server that Chico State uses for, that we give all of our students access to for running a lot of the code that they run and for various courses that are taught. And those students come and they don't really necessarily have a lot of experience interacting with the Unix server or moving their files over to one, and so that often becomes a big problem when you're first trying to get things going and you're trying to take a class in whatever the language is, C++, Java, PHP, it doesn't matter, and you're spending time figuring out just how to compile your code or get the files onto the server. And so what I'd like to do is just use this video as kind of a guide for one way that you can set up your Windows-based machine to interact with the files on the server in what I believe to be a pretty efficient manner, and kind of take some of the hassle out of that aspect of your time. So without further ado, I think we're going to just go ahead and jump right in. First thing I want to talk about is interacting with a remote server, and so I kind of want to highlight the pros and the cons to this sort of environment. And so, no, go away. And so, so a lot of students do. There's kind of two ways you can do this. You can do all of your work sort of over here. Right? You can just sort of do all of your work here. And so a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll just go to the lab computers and use those computers exclusively to do their work. And there are some benefits to doing that. Your big benefits to just working on a server, or they'll just explicitly do all of their work. They'll connect to the server through some sort of program, which we're actually going to go over in just a little bit, and they'll use that to just do the work all here. So really, this is the first approach, right? I'm just going to call this the first approach. And there are some benefits to this approach. The first benefit is, I guess I'll just call it right here, benefits. And the first one is backups, right? So if you do all your work on the remote server, the likelihood of you losing your work is pretty tiny. These servers are backed up nightly. They're always available, and so you as long as you have an internet connection or you're actually on the school campus and you can go into the lab computer, you'll have access to your files from anywhere. And then that kind of leads into the other benefit you have here is access, right? So theoretically you could access those files from any computer. You don't have to work on the same computer. You could be on any PC that has an internet connection and has the ability to just access the server, and all the files will always be there. So it really won't. It's not. You're not worrying about the files living on some specific computer that you're interacting with at the moment. They're all on the server, right? So these are some of the backups. Now some of the downs, or some of the benefits, some of the sort of downsides to doing this is that you don't have actually I don't want to say no, but limited environment. And what I mean by that, run out of space here. What I mean by that is that you are restricted at that point to whatever the capabilities of the server that has to offer at that moment. So if you're, in our case, you're running the remote server would be running on Ubuntu, and whatever programs are loaded onto the server are what you have access to. So certain editors are available, but other editors that you might want to use may not be available. You may not be able to have certain kinds of tools that you want to use while you're doing your development. So you're kind of limited to whatever happens to be loaded on the server, and because it's remote and it's managed by Chico State, you're not going to be able to download programs and load them onto the server. You're just going to have whatever is there for you, right? So it's very limited in that way, and it can be kind of a hassle. So that's probably the number one thing. It actually kind of slows down your development side if you have to do everything on the server. So that leads us to the other option, and I guess I'll just call this the second option, right? And that's to do everything over here on your local computer. And the benefits to this are basically the opposite of what they were on the remote server, is that you have full environment capabilities, right? So you can do anything you want. You can download as many tools as you want. You can have a very robust development environment with lots of tools and editors and syntax highlighting and linting and any number of things you want to do for writing your code. Any kind of extra tool sets that you want, you can just load them up on your computer and you're ready to go. The downfalls or the downsides are just what the other one was. Could fail. Right? So if your computer fails or has a problem, you may very well just lose all of your work, and then that's it. You're gone. You're done for. Unless you have a very robust backup system on your local side, you have a higher probability you could lose all your stuff. And then the also one was a limited access. So you could only access these files on that local machine, right? So you can't just hop into the nearest lab somewhere and connect to the computer. I suppose you could set up your local PC for that, but most people don't. So you're sort of limited in that way. So there are some pros and some cons here to these different approaches. Okay, so what this whole tutorial is going to be about kind of a bridge between the two things, like a middle ground to allow you to get the benefits of local PC development and the benefits of server development. So that's my aim here, is to kind of give you an approach that will allow for all of that. Let me get rid of some of all this extra stuff I wrote down here. So how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to talk about two different ways that you interact with a computer, okay? A remote computer in particular. So you are pretty much usually always on your local computer, right? Your local computer, and I am kind of building this tutorial for those who are on a Windows-based machine, although this paradigm could apply to really any operating system. It really isn't limited to Windows at all. There are two kind of ways you interact with the remote server. The first way is through executing commands on a computer. And then the other way that you interact with the computer is the creation and the management of files. Right? So these are kind of the two ways that we're going to talk about. So the way that you would connect to a remote server from your local PC, you would need a program to connect to the interwebs, and then that from the interwebs it would connect to the server, right? And the tool set that we're going to be talking about to do this is called SSH. And an SSH is a secure tunneling protocol that will allow you to execute, and SSH, you can kind of think of this as, this is the executing commands tool set. So this will allow you to access the remote server and execute commands on that OS. Now, what do I mean by commands? I mean things like ls to view the files and folders in a particular directory, or cd to change a directory so you can move around, or you can create new directories, you can copy files, you can delete files. These sorts of things are what I mean when I say commands. So SSH allows you to do that. So you can be on your local PC, you can execute a command over using SSH, and that command will run on the remote server. And so that's kind of that paradigm. Now, the other way, the other kind of thing that you want to do from your local PC, right, is you want to be able to move files back and forth, right? So I guess I really should be putting these arrows going both directions, because that's really, for this part of it, is going to be back and forth. And so the protocol that we use for that, there's a couple of them, but the one you really should be using is SFTP. Now, the S stands for secure. There is another one that's just regular FTP. I would advise against that, since it is just transmitting your files in plain, clear text, so anybody could intercept them and know what you're moving your files over. So it's better to use SFTP. And SFTP is kind of, as I've just been saying, this is really the protocol used for moving files. Okay? So you can have files that live here on your local computer, and you would use SFTP to move them through the internet over to the remote computer, and then they could live there, right? And vice versa, you could have files that live on your remote computer first, and then you could move them back so that they end up on your on your local computer. I kind of messed that up. So in any case, that's those are the two kind of modes we're talking about. And I wanted to kind of highlight this up front, that this is what we're talking about, and this is the two ways that you can kind of interact with it. And so we're going to be doing everything local through this method, but there's going to be a syncing between the local and the remote server. Once we get done, it'll be synced up so that all interactions are happening both ways. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that's what we're talking about. This is how this kind of high-level view. So let's move ourselves back over here to the back over to my PowerPoint. So now that we've kind of gone through that, let's talk a little bit about what you're going to need to connect to the Chico State server. So the first thing you're going to need is access to an ECC account. ECC account is the engineering, computer science, construction management department's account for access to the Unix server specifically. Now, this actually is tied to your account that you already have as a student at Chico State. So you already have one as long as you can get into like the portal or Blackboard. It's the same username and password you would use for that. So you shouldn't have any problems there. I've also put up the link here to kind of some FAQ for questions regarding the ECC account. So you can go there to kind of, if you have any questions about that. I'm not going to really get into it here. I just wanted to put that up there for you to know. Alright, so the next thing we're going to talk about is PuTTY. Now, so when I was talking earlier about SSH, up here, this SSH stuff, this is what I'm talking about. PuTTY is an application that does SSH tunneling. So it's an application that you can use to make a SSH connection to a remote server, and it will allow you to execute commands on that remote server. So here's the download. So this is very, very common program. It's been around for a very long time. I've put the link here to the URL to download the tool. I've also put some links to for extra information you might need to do some of the research about PuTTY. I'm not going to get into all the nuts and bolts of PuTTY here. I'm just going to show you kind of what you need to know. But this first link is like the full user's manual, which is very, very long and hefty. So if you feel like getting to know it really well, that's the place to be. I've also included a link to a YouTube video, which is a lot more user-friendly. It's about 5 minutes, and it gives you very much the basics of downloading PuTTY, setting it up, and connecting to a server. So that'd be a good one. And if you don't like those, you can Google search any kind of PuTTY review or PuTTY tutorial, and you'll get a million different ways to do it. So you're not going to want for different tutorials on that. So let's go ahead and do just that. So let's go over here, and here I've already downloaded PuTTY, so I'm going to just fire it up. And once you get it, it's pretty cut and dry. I already have a session here, so I'm just going to load it up. And the most simple way to do this really is to just put in the host name or the IP, and that's pretty much all you really need to do. And so for our purposes, that'll be jaguar.ecst.csuchico.edu, port 222 or 22, and that will that's the default port, so you don't have to really do anything here. SSH is also the default option with PuTTY. So really, you just put this in, and you click open, and there you go. Now, the very first time you ever connect to this server, you're going to get this little message, and this is really just a security message letting you know PuTTY doesn't have a registry option for this already. It doesn't know what this server is. And so it's just warning you that it has no way of really verifying this. Now there are steps you can take to do this proper and register the key beforehand and blah blah blah. I'm not going to get into that. Most people I've noticed don't really go to the full extent that they probably should to secure down to the server they're connecting to, and I am apparently one of those people. So if you do what most people do, you'll just click yes here, which will add this server fingerprint to your registry, and then you'll never get this message again. The server from that point on will the computer will just know that that's a trusted server, and you can just keep going to it. I actually don't want to do that, so I'm going to go ahead and click no. But if you wanted to, you can just click yes, and it will never happen again. All right, so here we go. When you get in here, it's going to ask you to log in with your credentials. Like I said, it's just going to be your username and password for that you use for everything at Chico State. So for me, I'm going to put in my username, and that's going to ask me for my password. And I'll go ahead and do that now. And there we go. And so as you can see, the first thing it does is it tells you a whole bunch of information about the server you just connected to. It's telling you that it's Ubuntu, which is a Linux-based, looks like a Linux distro. There's some documentation about it, some information about the server itself. Real interesting stuff if you're a server guy. I am not, so I'm not going to worry about that. And then after that, here it is. You're on a command prompt, so you can, ls, you can cd, you can make directories, you can execute commands from here. Now I'm going to go ahead and close PuTTY right now. I'm going to use a different tool to connect in over SSH, but I just wanted to show you that operation. And I'm going to use a different tool really just because it's already configured a little better, and it'll show up a little nicer, so hopefully people will be able to read things a little easier. So there it is. And hopefully that'll be a little easier for everyone to read, but you can see it's the same thing, right? The exact same stuff showing up there. So the only real command that you're going to want to do when you first get into Jaguar is pwd. Now what that's going to do is that's going to show you the current directory that you are logged into, right? And this is important for the next step that we're about to do. So I would just jot this down or remember it and know that that's going to come up here in a little bit, but for right now that's what you really need to know here, and that's pretty much all you need to know for now. So minimize that, and we're going to go back here, and now we're going to start talking about Atom. Okay, so Atom is a text editor. It is a a very modern text editor. It just came out maybe a few years ago. It's basically the text editor built by the GitHub community, and it is, which is a very open source sort of community of developers. It's modern in the sense that it employs a package manager, and what that package manager allows you to do is you download the editor, kind of the base product, if you will, and that will let you do your regular stuff that you would think every text editor in the world could do. Now you write commands, you type stuff into it, save files, real basic functionality. Whenever somebody comes up with a new utility they use for some specific purpose, so let's say you have a utility for, I don't know, the syntax highlighting for some new language just came out. So the special Matt Cervantes language just came out, and you want to be able to see the keywords in a nice, text highlighted color. Well, I could go out and write a package for that in Atom, and then you could download that package into the Atom editor, and then it would just be there for you. So the package manager is a system that allows users of the editor to download, kind of cherry pick the utilities they want from the open source community, and then they can use it for whatever purpose they want. So that's probably one of the biggest reasons why I like Atom. It's got that nice package manager. It's got lots of stuff built in for free, and it's a free editor, by the way. It doesn't cost you anything, which is also a pretty big plus. It is by no means the only editor out there. There are tons and tons and tons of text editors available on a Windows-based machine. A couple that come to mind are Notepad++, Sublime. There's just a ton of them out there. So I don't want to give the impression this is the only thing that you can use. I'm going to use it for our purposes because I like some of the features that it has, and it works well. So this is the URL to go download it. There's also, again, I give you some documentation here. So here's the URL for their online user's manual for Atom, and then I also provide another link to a YouTube video. That one's much more of a almost a sales pitch for Atom than it is really a user guide. It's more just kind of showing you what it can do on a very high level, but still kind of fun to watch. So once you've done that, we're going to go over here to Atom. We're going to fire up Atom. Okay, so now that it's open, we're going to make use of one of the first cool things I like about Atom, which is the package manager. And so I have a specific package that I want to use, and that it's going to help us with this remote connections to a server. So the main command you need to know in Atom is Control-Shift-P, and that will bring up this lovely little dialog. It will basically let you search for anything in the entire editor. So like any menu, any special option, whatever you want. So I'm going to go ahead and just say install package. Oh, look, and it's like the first thing that pops up. So right here, it's in the settings, install packages and themes. So I'm going to click on that, and here we go. This is the little space that you can use to install packages. So like I was talking about earlier, packages, people write packages all the time to do specific things. You can see kind of some featured ones right here. There's some stuff you can potentially just download, and you can see right here that it's as simple as clicking the install button and you have it on your computer. So there's a very specific package that I'm looking for. It's called Remote FTP. And it's searching, and it's the very first one that pops up. So I've already installed it, but if I hadn't, it would sit here and say install. I could also disable it or uninstall it if I wanted from here. And I could even click in here and go to the settings. If you click here, it'll actually take you over to the GitHub space for this particular project, and you can read all about the folks who developed Remote FTP. You can contribute to it. It's an open source project, just like pretty much all of these are. So that's, again, kind of a cool setup here. So I installed this utility, and what this utility does very specifically is it allows me to, from the editor itself, from the place that I'm going to be writing code, it allows me to sync my files with a remote server. So I can, every time I hit save, it's going to just automatically move the files off of my computer onto the local place. So every single time I'm over here doing something on my local PC and I hit save, it's going to use the SFTP protocol, right? It's going to use that, and it's going to move the file over here to the remote server automatically. So it's going to basically take care of this whole bottom part that I had written before, right? This whole spot here is now just kind of taken care of by Atom for me. Yay, right? That's super. So I don't have to deal with that anymore, right? So that's kind of the joy of this setup. So so now that I've showed you where to go to install this, you hit the install button, you wait a few minutes, and then it's done. Okay. So now that it's installed, right? The next thing I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have it minimize this, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a directory on our local computer. So here, I'm going to say new folder, and this folder is going to hold some projects. So let's say I'm taking a C++ class, and I have my first project. I'm going to call it example project. It's a great name, right? And that's going to be the place where I put all of my files related to that project. Okay. Now remember earlier, I have two of these in the lab. Yeah, go away. Now remember earlier I said you're going to need to remember this. Well, we're here now. So I want to map the folders on my local computer here in this example project. I want to map them and sync them with the directory in here. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go back into Atom, and I'm going to say packages up here at the top, and I'm going to see here's remote FTP. It's that new package I just did, and I'm going to say, oh, actually before I do that, sorry, first things first, let's open that folder I just made. So on my local computer, desktop, example project, select folder. Now by doing that, you'll see this new pane opened up, and it shows excuse me, it shows kind of like a tree view of all the folders, all the files in that folder. So obviously there's nothing there right now, but as I add more and more files, this would show them all here. All right, now that I've done that, now I'm going to go into packages, remote FTP, and I'm going to create an SFTP config file. So I'm just going to, all this is this is me telling Atom and the remote FTP utility what server I'm connecting to, who I'm connecting to it as, and where on the server we should sync the files. So a lot of this is already built for you, but now I'm just going to fill out the stuff that needs to be filled out. So I'm going to do the same thing I did last time with PuTTY. I'm going to put the same information, basically, jaguar.ecst.csuchico.edu. Port 22 is fine. I'm going to put my user that I used to log into it. All right. Pass, so this is where I would put my password. I'm not going to do that right now. Prompt for pass can stay false. And here, this part right here where it says remote, this is where you would tell it the specific place that you want to put it, right? And so I said, last time that was user faculty MR Cervantes, so that's exactly what I'm going to put in here. I'm going to put user faculty MR Cervantes. Now I don't really want it to go straight to that. I would like to actually have a directory in here where it can map to. So let's go in here, and look, I already have a folder in here called exproj. So we're going to say cd exproj. There's nothing in it, right? But that's really where I want everything to go. So it's my example project. So I'm just going to add that to the end here, exproj, okay? And that's going to mean that every time I save, it's going to put whatever the files are into that folder, specifically into this path into that folder. The rest of it is fine. I think there's one other thing here. I think it's the host hash. Yeah, the host hash you want to move. You want to make it SHA-1. Let's go ahead and put that in there like that. And the rest of it I think is actually fine. So now I'm going to just save it. And lo and behold, I saved it, and you can see over here on the left hand side, it actually created the FTP config for me. Right, so it created it in the folder. And so I'm going to now, you can just kind of show you, if you go over here into the directory, hey, there it is, there's that folder that it created for me. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, look at that, even better. Alright, so that's all set. So now we have a way of connecting to the file. Now we can get into some fun. So let's say I'm going to make a new full file. I'm going to put it in this directory. So a new file, and we're going to call that file, let's see, we're going to call it test.txt. Alright, so here we go. I got my new file called test.txt, and we're going to just be pretty simple about it. Like, here are some words. Alright, now, I want it to make it so that every time I save this file, it goes directly to where I want it to go. So the way we do that is we go over here to Packages, Remote FTP, and I'm going to hit this toggle button. Toggle is going to open up this extra pane, right? And this pane is basically telling you, do you want to go ahead and just connect to the host that you already configured in that FTP config file, which I do. So I hit connect. And you can see over here it's connecting to the FTP. Oh, and it's connected. So cool. So now I'm in. So now that I'm connected, right, we can hide this extra pane now. I've noticed it's sort of sitting there for no apparent reason, so it's taking up space. So now that we're connected, when I save it like that, it should have just moved the file straight over to the directory. So let's confirm that. So here we are, we're in the exproj directory. Let's do ls, and there's test.txt. And let's see what's inside of it. Here are some words. But wait, there's more. Let's make some more words. Making more words with an exclamation point. Save. Come back over here, and I'll cat it out again. Here are some words, making more words. So as you can see, every time I save it, it's just automatically pushing the file straight up to my remote server and just putting the information directly there. So I'm not having to do any kind of transferring. Atom is basically doing that work for me. So Atom is basically taking care of this lower part. But we still have this upper part up here, the SSH part, and that's basically what PuTTY is doing, right? So this part is being taken care of here. I can still execute the commands here, right? I can execute like I just did a minute ago. I did cat, I did ls, I did some other stuff, I did some CDs. That's still all happening over here through PuTTY, but the actual just moving of the files is happening in the editor, the place I'm actually writing my code. So let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and just do this for a C++ program. I'm going to write a very simple C++ program. So let's do that right now. New file, main.cpp is what I'm going to call it. And we're going to write basically the world's easiest, fastest C++ program. So let's go with like include iostream. Well, look, and here's one of those nice things, right? Look at that. How cool is that? Like, it just basically wrote the entire beginning part of a C++ program for me. I didn't even have to do anything. I just tab completed. And look, it's even telling me this is where I put the code. So this is the kind of stuff that where if you were doing this on the remote server, you wouldn't probably get tab complete for like a whole bunch of stuff like that. So now I'm going to say std. Oh, look, it knows what that is. Cout. Oh, I want to cout, so there it is. Bam. That's pretty cool. Just completed that for me. So now I just have to just write a message in here. Sup world. Alright. So that's a pretty simple program. I'm going to hit save. Alright. Let's come over here. And let's see if that file made it so if there's main.cpp. Just right there. I didn't even have to do anything. And so now let's compile it. So this is, now I'm going to compile it. I'm going to execute a command. to generate, compile, and then create an executable. So I'm going to have to do that over SSH. So I'm going to do it in PuTTY. So G++, main.cpp, and I'm just going to call this program Merle original name. Oh, look, I have an error. Oh, look at that. So let's go back over here and we can look. Oh, and look at that. My autocomplete wasn't as great as I thought it was. It added an extra STD in there. So I did the change. Hit save. Let's go back. And here's kind of highlights the coolness of it. I can just execute the previous command. Hey, and it works just fine now because I changed it and it already put it up on the server. So now I can ls again. There's my program, so I'll do /program. Sup world? Awesome. Now the rest of my development is pretty simplistic. I just come over here and I make changes to my code. So this time I'm saying sup dude. Alright, save, run up here, execute that again, sup dude. Pretty darn easy. And now you can see the big advantage here. All I have to do to keep my development process going is have Atom open and a PuTTY session open. The files are automatically moved to the server every time I save. So I can basically do all of my development on the server. But I still am getting the benefit of having a nice modern editor on this side with all this nice syntax highlighting and auto completion and all that great stuff. And it's also creating the files local. So those files are still here. I still have a main.cpp and test. They're still happening here. It's just that they're automatically getting FTP'd over to the other side. They're all coming over this way through Atom. Right? So they're basically living in both places. Atom is basically making it so they exist in both places. And they're always going to be synced up, so you're not going to run into that fun issue where you're having to scratch your head and be like, did I already FTP this file over there? Did I not? I don't remember. What's the newest version? That's pretty much taken care of for you with Atom. And then you can use PuTTY to just do the rest. So hopefully this has been a good little tutorial for you, and it can help you as you do more and more of your programs. It is not limited at all to C++. You could use the same paradigm for pretty much any kind of code development, or even just regular old file development that you want. So that does it for me, and hope you have a good one. Happy coding.